Afghanistan in 2002, and you were called into a very remote section, something coming out of the cave, and it's moving with a speed and agility that catches you off.
In 2002, a U.S. military patrol vanished deep in the mountains outside Kandahar, Afghanistan, leaving behind a trail of shattered gear and human bones, but no bodies. What followed was not just a search or rescue mission, but an encounter so bizarre and terrifying that official records were erased and witnesses sworn to secrecy. Could a 15-foot humanoid creature lurking in a remote cave explain this chilling disappearance? This isn't a story of conventional warfare. This is a secret battle fought in silence, one that challenges everything we think we know about what's out there. The Vanishing Patrol. In the spring of 2002, a U.S. Army infantry squad was deployed to the rugged mountains outside Kandahar, Afghanistan, during Operation Enduring Freedom. Their mission was routine: patrol a known insurgent supply route used to move weapons and explosives. For days, everything followed protocol: regular check-ins, steady communication, no signs of trouble. Then, without warning, the squad went silent. Radio contact was lost. Calls went unanswered. What began as a minor concern quickly escalated into a full-scale alert. Air reconnaissance units were dispatched, scanning the mountainous terrain for any trace of movement, signals, or even smoke. But the skies revealed nothing. No distress signals, no signs of combat, no visible clues. It was as if the entire squad had simply vanished. As hours turned into a full day with no updates, the situation grew more alarming. These weren't inexperienced soldiers, they were trained for exactly this kind of environment. Yet, there were no signs of an ambush, no enemy chatter intercepted, and no explanation that fit. Command made a critical decision: deploy a Tier 1 Special Operations unit to investigate the last known coordinates. The elite recovery team arrived expecting a firefight aftermath. Instead, they found something far stranger. Scattered across the rocky terrain were fragments of destroyed gear, ripped tactical vests, crushed equipment, and weapons left behind in unnatural positions. Some items appeared torn apart with extreme force, not the kind typically seen in conventional combat. More unsettling were the marks on the ground. Deep drag trails cut through the dirt, suggesting the soldiers had been pulled away. But there was no blood, no bodies, no shell casings, no indication of a firefight or retreat. The silence was overwhelming, described by some as wrong, a place where something violent had happened, yet left almost no trace behind. The scene showed no evidence of matching established patterns. The situation did not involve a Taliban ambush. The situation showed no signs of an animal attack. The operators who possessed exceptional skills failed to explain what they witnessed. The most frightening aspect of the situation proved to be the total absence of proof. The team discovered a cave entrance after following the drag marks, which led them deeper into the area. The object appeared normal until that particular moment, when everything turned into something different. The team advanced through hostile territory because caves served as locations for enemy ambushes, which they needed to avoid with their weapons prepared and their movements strictly controlled. The mission turned from recovery operations when they discovered a hidden area within the facility. The cave floor contained military debris, which extended over the area and included human skeletal remains. The area contained only dismembered body parts, which had been scattered throughout the space. The injuries sustained by the body did not match the effects of gunfire, explosives, or various known animal attacks. The evidence showed something entirely different, which included an unknown violent act. And then, the official account reached its conclusion. The organization has not released any after-action reports to the public. The organization has not confirmed any records of military fatalities. The military does not acknowledge the existence of missing personnel. The squad that went missing from the records has vanished. But the story didn't die there. Soldiers began to share private details, which later spread to online platforms and public discussions. All reports shared different information about the same missing person case, which included a missing person who vanished from a violent incident and a discovery that proved too shocking to explain. Entering that cave was to step into an unknown realm, where signs of violence multiplied, and the first glimpse of something extraordinary would soon shatter all expectations. Inside the Cave of Terror. The cave's entrance bore silent witness to a scene of destruction, unlike anything the Special Forces team had encountered before. Torn military uniforms were strewn in clumps, rifle barrels snapped clean in half, and communication devices lay crushed beyond repair. These were not discarded in panic, but savagely dismantled, hinting at a violent force capable of overwhelming heavily armed soldiers. Still, no bodies were found near the cave's mouth, as if the men had been dragged inside or vanished altogether. Progressing deeper into the shadowed chamber, the soldiers noticed something glinting from the rock walls, a piece of an M4 carbine bent unnaturally and lodged deep into the stone. Such damage indicated a level of strength far beyond typical combat conditions, raising questions that demanded a forensic investigation. Yet, despite these clues, no standard military process took place publicly or officially. The silence was deafening, as if the cave's secrets were not meant to see daylight. The most horrifying discovery was the scattering of human bones, long femurs cracked in unnatural places, skulls fractured, and ribs torn apart with the ease of shredded plastic. These remains were not arranged in any order or ceremony, but carelessly tossed like remnants of a grotesque feast. Several bones bore massive bite or crush marks far larger than any native predator or enemy weapon could make. Neither wolves nor mountain lions nor Taliban fighters matched the scale of this destruction. Witnesses described a terrifying event when a person appeared from the cave entrance. The being moved through the area while standing upright and making no sounds, which created surprise because nothing about its appearance matched known animal species or military personnel. The creature stood at a height between 13 and 15 feet, while its human-like body structure showed extreme physical deformities. The creature's arms extended to an exceptional length, which created a skeletal appearance because its skin showed signs of extreme dehydration and aging. The creature possessed long red hair that grew from both its head and facial area to create a wild and savage appearance. The most disturbing aspect of the creature involved its hands, which had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, creating a rare body defect that terrified all soldiers watching. Its eyes, which were set deep into its head, appeared wide open, as they emitted a soft glow that resembled burning ash from the dark cave. The creature held a large weapon that resembled a spear in its hands. Although the weapon appeared basic, it possessed dangerous capabilities. The creature's sudden attack changed the mission from a search operation to a desperate fight for survival. The team faced their first attack when soldiers attacked before they could organize their defenses. The attack came as an unexpected surprise, which delivered a precise assault that even experienced warriors found impossible to handle. The soldiers began shooting their M4 carbines and sidearms, together with a Barrett .50 caliber sniper rifle, despite their fear. The giant remained standing after bullets struck him because he sustained only minor injuries from attacks that would render any normal opponent helpless. The creature exhibited terrifying resilience, which made it almost immune to standard bullet attacks. The giant crashed to the ground after 30 seconds of continuous gunfire, which produced a loud thud that shook the cave. The soldiers realized they faced something more dangerous than a common animal or a mutated enemy that refused to die. The encounter inside that cave would defy all explanation and force those who witnessed it into dangerous silence, while questions about its origin and purpose grew deeper in the outside world. The giant emerges. In the dim light of the cave, the soldiers came face to face with a being that defied every classification known to science or military intelligence. Its body, towering between 13 and 15 feet tall, was not a disproportionate mutation, but strikingly symmetrical. as if designed with intent. From 6 fingers on each hand
6 fingers and 6 toes.
to jagged, triangular teeth, the creature's physical traits marked it as something wholly apart from any known species. Its leathery skin appeared sun-scorched, hardened by environmental extremes, and stretched tightly over sinewy muscles. It wore crude coverings fashioned from a patchwork of animal hides or possibly human remains, giving it an unsettling, primal armor. Thick, matted red hair fell in tangled sheets from its scalp down to its lower back, coated in oil and decay. One soldier later described the creature's scent as a mix of rotting copper and dried blood, an odor as unnatural as its appearance. Despite its grotesque nature, the giant moved with a terrifying quiet speed and precision. Its 6-fingered hands wielded the massive spear-like weapon with deadly skill, impaling a soldier before they could react fully. Witnesses recalled a moment of surreal disbelief, where fear mixed with confusion as they fought not just a monstrous beast, but something that felt engineered to slay efficiently. The firefight lasted only about 30 seconds, but its intensity was overwhelming. M4 carbines unleashed volleys that barely slowed the creature. Only the designated marksman's powerful Barrett rifle inflicted the fatal wound, the force causing the giant to collapse with a seismic impact on the cave floor. This was no casualty of ordinary combat. It was a resistant predator that seemed almost immune to the standard arsenal of soldiers. Even in death, the creature's presence refused to fade into insignificance. Its alert, almost intelligent eyes suggested an awareness that transcended animal instinct. The soldiers who encountered it unanimously agreed that this was not an accident of nature or a freak mutation. It carried the unmistakable mark of a remnant from a forgotten past. Estimates placed its weight at over 1,100 pounds, making the body nearly impossible to move without assistance. The size and symmetry signaled a creature that was evolved or engineered, not simply malformed. This raised profound questions about its origin. Was it a hidden species that survived undetected, a mythical being of regional legend, or something else entirely? The team quickly requested an airlift, needing to remove both the creature and the soldier who had fallen during the fight, Dan. Yet what followed only deepened the enigma. There would be no public investigation, no detailed report, just a swift extraction accompanied by silence and non-disclosure agreements that muffled the truth for decades to come. The giant's emergence exposed a shadow area where military secrecy, suppressed testimony, and unexplained phenomena collided. It challenged what soldiers and the world could believe possible in the heart of a war zone shrouded by mountains and secrets. As the dust settled, it became clear that the truth was far more complex and frightening than anyone had imagined. The short, brutal firefight. The encounter turned from discovery to combat in a matter of seconds, catching the Special Forces unit off guard. The massive humanoid lunged suddenly, impaling the soldier known only as Dan, with a crude but deadly spear-like weapon.
And it managed to kill one of the soldiers with a spear before it was brought down by their assault rifles.
The shock of the attack sent the team scrambling into action, but the sheer size and speed of the creature left little time to react. Despite being wounded, the giant remained a formidable threat, its grip still deadly as chaos erupted within the dark confines of the cave. Soldiers unleashed a barrage of gunfire from their M4 carbines and sidearms, rounds tearing through the air in a desperate attempt to stop the advancing behemoth. But the creature withstood the onslaught with unnerving resilience. Bullets bounced off its leathery skin and solid frame, causing only fleeting stumbles. This was no ordinary enemy, and the soldiers soon realized their standard tactics might not be enough to bring it down. The designated marksman quickly dropped to the cave floor and fired a precise burst from his Barrett .50 caliber sniper rifle, delivering a heavy, concentrated blow. Only then did the giant falter, its momentum broken by the significant firepower. It collapsed onto the cave floor with a force that shook loose debris from the ceiling above, signaling the end of the brief but intense battle. Yet even in death, its presence remained arresting, and strange. The firefight lasted barely 30 seconds, but every soldier involved recorded the encounter as unlike anything they had ever trained for or imagined. They described it as if they were fighting something not simply unknown, but engineered to slay. This perception was shaped by the creature's unnerving strength, resistance, and speed, which far exceeded those of normal combatants or wildlife. What lay before them was no incidental encounter. It was a confrontation with a biological anomaly that seemed beyond human or animal nature. The investigation of the creature's body showed new details that created additional, unexplained elements of its existence. Multiple eyewitnesses confirmed that the person had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. The teeth displayed a jagged shape with triangular edges, which functioned better for animal hunting than for human use. The creature displayed extreme physical strength through its perfect symmetrical body structure, which showed no connection to any recognized evolutionary path or natural evolutionary changes. The battle reached an extreme level of intensity, as the soldiers' uniforms and equipment proved through their condition. The battle destruction became evident through the torn tactical vests, destroyed weapon barrels, and damaged communications equipment, which acted as silent witnesses to the combat. The cave atmosphere became more frightening because the witnesses reported a decaying smell, which they described as a combination of rotting copper and dried blood. The weight of the creature, which exceeded 1,100 pounds, created difficulties for both its movement and its removal from the area. The process of moving its enormous corpse required substantial effort, which showed the investigators the true dimensions of the creature they had encountered. The occurrence represented built elements that had evolved through time to develop beyond human understanding. The team experienced a silent state of disorder after the firefight ceased, and they had eliminated all immediate dangers. The soldiers faced difficulty understanding what they had just seen because they had seen a hidden giant who exceeded both their battlefield expectations and their legend. The soldiers had received training to fight against enemy forces, but this situation required them to combat a living shadow from a dimension that most people refused to acknowledge. The weight of what had been uncovered demanded swift action, but the response that followed added layers to the mystery that refused clarity. The aftermath and extraction. Following the intense firefight, the Special Forces unit quickly requested extraction and medical evacuation for their wounded comrade, Dan. What arrived was not a typical medevac, but a CH-47 Chinook helicopter designed for heavy cargo and transport. This departure from standard recovery operations was the first sign that official procedures might be concealing something unusual about the incident. Personnel who disembarked from the Chinook wore no unit patches or identifying insignias, an absence that immediately sparked unease among the soldiers. These silent operatives neither engaged in conversation nor offered an explanation, focusing solely on securing the creature's corpse for transport.
We were told we had to bundle him up. So we got him on there. The thing was too big. We couldn't move it.
This clinical and impersonal handling suggested experience with such recoveries, hinting at a covert agenda beyond conventional military protocol. The giant's body was lifted carefully onto a netted platform suspended beneath the Chinook, a spectacle witnessed silently by the Special Forces. The precision of the crew's movements indicated this was not their first encounter with similar cargo. As the aircraft lifted into the sky, it left behind a heavy silence and unanswered questions that would weigh on the soldiers for years. Once back at their base, the soldiers faced another kind of battle, a struggle to keep the truth contained. Each member of the recovery team was separated, interrogated individually, and pressured into signing extensive non-disclosure agreements. These contracts went beyond normal confidentiality, barring even acknowledgement that the mission had taken place. The consequences of speaking out were made clear: loss of career, dishonor, and forced reassignment. Some soldiers refused the NDAs, and their refusal came at a cost. They were transferred to obscure posts, discharged from service, or quietly sidelined. Those who complied were effectively erased from official records related to the mission. The soldier Dan, fatally wounded in the cave, was not listed in any public or military casualty database for that time or area. This institutional erasure deepened the sense of an orchestrated cover-up. Despite these efforts at silence, whispers fled through the ranks. One medic involved in post-mission processing reportedly broke protocol, telling a fellow soldier simply, "It exists." This brief acknowledgement became a quiet spark that fanned into rumors and legend, traveling through military forums, independent researchers, and eventually into the public domain through anonymous testimony. Meanwhile, official denial remained steadfast. The Department of Defense issued statements dismissing the entire incident as fiction. No records existed of a missing patrol matching the described squad, and no acknowledged firefights or casualties aligned with the story. This clean slate was, in itself, suspicious, since military engagements, even classified ones, typically leave trace documentation. Years later, Freedom of Information Act inquiries into personnel recovery operations near Kandahar from that period revealed inconsistencies. Partial documents appeared, then vanished. Redacted pages surfaced without explanation. And flight logs from Bagram Air Base showed an unexplained 24-hour data gap precisely during the alleged extraction. These anomalies suggested deliberate removal or suppression of evidence. The climate of official denial, combined with the aggressive enforcement of silence, transformed the incident from an isolated encounter into a shadow war of information control. What the soldiers saw deep inside that cave, and the consequences that followed, mapped the boundaries of a story no one was meant to hear, much less believe. The layers of mystery invite us to look beyond the firefight and extraction into the foggy landscape where records vanish, and official voices speak only in denials. Missing records and government denial. In the aftermath of the Kandahar cave incident, something unusual happened: silence. Despite the reported loss of an entire patrol and a high-risk recovery mission, no official after-action reports were ever released. There were no confirmed casualty records, no mission summaries, and no acknowledgement from military channels. For an institution known for documenting operations in detail, this absence stood out immediately. Independent researchers turned to Freedom of Information Act requests, hoping to uncover any trace of the event. What they received only deepened the mystery: vague responses, missing files, and in many cases, outright claims that no such records existed. Even the soldier referred to as Dan could not be found in any official database. No matching name, no listed casualty, nothing. At times, fragments of information did surface. A few partial documents referenced a personnel recovery operation near Kandahar in early 2002, aligning with the timeline of the alleged incident. But these records were incomplete, stripped of names, outcomes, and key details. Stranger still, some of these documents later disappeared or were reclassified without explanation. In a system built for accountability, that kind of inconsistency raised serious questions. Mainstream fact-checking outlets attempted to dismiss the story, often pointing to the lack of verifiable evidence. However, critics argue that this approach avoids the core issue. In some cases, rebuttals addressed claims that weren't even part of the original narrative, such as linking unrelated individuals to the story, further confusing the discussion rather than clarifying it. The official military statements maintained their position, which declared that no patrols disappeared, no strange encounters took place, and no operations of that nature ever occurred. The complete story received classification as internet fiction, together with exaggerated folklore. The denial about the events faced opposition from veterans who reported their experiences and from unnamed individuals who shared information. Across forums, interviews, and private conversations, the same details surfaced again and again. Same location, same sequence of events, same disturbing elements. The suspicion received support from another detail. Reports about flight operations in Bagram Air Base indicated that all flight activities stopped for almost 24 hours during the time when the alleged extraction operation occurred. The operational hub experiences major operational activities, which makes such a gap highly unusual. The system encountered two separate problems, which resulted in an incomplete system operation that left behind two additional parts. Enforced silence existed beyond official records. Some individuals who allegedly had knowledge of the incident reported being warned not to speak, even signing non-disclosure agreements far stricter than typical operational protocols. People who crossed the line into forbidden areas faced job-related consequences, which created an impression that some information should remain hidden from others. The missing files and lost records with their complete denials create an evidence pattern that people must see because it exists as an unmistakable fact. The absence of public information about the situation creates uncertainty, which makes people need to understand whether the event was a classified operation, a public misunderstanding, or something different. The mystery of Kandahar extends beyond all available evidence to include all elements that remain unaccounted for. The absence of official information transforms into a storytelling element that becomes part of the story. The questions become more pronounced during times of silence. The eerie silence of missing records slips seamlessly into the layers of myth, psychology, and speculation that surround this strange chapter in Kandahar's history. Folklore, psychology, and alternative explanations. Afghanistan's harsh terrain has long been tied to stories of giants and hidden beings said to dwell in caves and mountains. Local legends describe creatures like the Deo or Ifrit, often depicted as large, violent, sometimes red-haired entities that guard remote areas. These myths existed long before modern warfare, shaping how unusual encounters are understood. For soldiers entering unfamiliar territory, exposure to these stories, combined with isolation and tension, could influence how they interpret what they see. Skeptics lean on psychology to explain the Kandahar giant story. Combat stress, exhaustion, and the chaos of war can distort perception. In extreme situations, the brain fills in gaps, turning shadows or threats into something far more terrifying. There are even documented cases of group hallucinations or shared misinterpretations under pressure. From this perspective, the giant could be an exaggerated or misidentified figure, perhaps a large human, animal, or even a constructed memory shaped after the fact. But that explanation doesn't fully settle things. Reports tied to the story often mention physical evidence, damaged equipment, unusual remains, and claims of a recovered body. Even if some of these details are exaggerated or secondhand, they complicate the idea that everything was purely psychological. The consistency in certain descriptions also raises questions. Across different accounts, similar features appear: massive size, red hair, and notably, 6 fingers and toes. That last detail connects the story to something older. In ancient texts like the Book of Genesis and the apocryphal Book of Enoch, there are references to giant beings, often called the Nephilim, described as powerful, aggressive, and unnatural. While these texts are not scientific evidence, the parallels are enough to keep the theory alive for some researchers who see echoes of ancient myths in modern accounts. Other theories stretch in a different direction. Some suggest the possibility of a classified experiment, a biological anomaly, or engineered soldier. But without proof, these ideas remain speculation. On the opposite end, others propose the creature could be a cryptid, a species unknown to science that has somehow survived in isolation. Both explanations try to fill the gaps, but neither fully explains the story. Local Afghan warnings about certain caves add another layer. Stories passed down through generations often caution against entering specific areas, describing them as cursed or dangerous. Whether symbolic or rooted in real encounters, these narratives may have influenced how soldiers approached and later described their experiences. Still, one of the strongest arguments against simple dismissal is the repeated consistency across accounts. Independent voices, often anonymous, describe similar events, traits, and outcomes, That doesn't prove the story is true, but it makes it harder to ignore entirely. Then there's the issue of silence. Claims of missing records, strict non-disclosure agreements, and sudden career consequences for those who spoke out suggest something more than rumor control. Even if exaggerated, such responses imply an effort to contain the narrative. The shadowy lengths to which information has been suppressed only deepen the question: what really lurks in the forgotten corners of Kandahar's mountains, and why must it remain a secret? Persistent investigations and lingering questions. Despite official denials and efforts to scrub records, the Kandahar giant story hasn't disappeared. Independent investigators, journalists, and former military personnel continue to follow leads through anonymous testimonies, leaked accounts, and interviews. While none of these sources offer hard proof, many share strikingly similar details about the encounter, the creature, and the military response. That consistency keeps the mystery alive, even without institutional backing. One of the most talked about efforts came from L.A. Marzulli, who published an interview with an anonymous soldier claiming involvement in the recovery operation. The account echoed familiar elements: a missing squad, a cave confrontation, and the extraction of a massive body by a covert helicopter team. Though unverifiable, it reignited interest and showed how difficult it is to contain a story once it spreads. The Coast to Coast AM show and various media platforms helped increase visibility of these assertions, which resulted in more veterans coming forward to disclose their experiences while using anonymous methods. The online communities of Above Top Secret and Reddit gathered together different accounts that showed unexpected similarities. All attempts made to identify people or connect records resulted in dead ends. The situation became more mysterious when a supposed casualty identified only as Dan emerged. Researchers found no official record of such a death in Kandahar, leading to speculation that the name was either a cover or erased entirely. The absence of records from that time period creates doubt about the situation because it implies someone tried to hide the facts. The year 2016 saw a decline in public interest regarding the incident. The removal of videos from the internet, together with the disappearance of blog posts and the breakdown of archived interviews, resulted in complete information loss. The public silence that followed pressure from outside forces marked an end to their previous vocal opposition, according to some veterans. Whether the situation occurred by chance or through a planned operation, both results led to decreased public awareness and increased uncertainty. Skeptics argue the story is nothing more than folklore shaped by stress and rumor. The supporters of the claim present evidence through eyewitness accounts that remain constant and through unexplained gaps within the official documents. The story continues to be told because people hold conflicting views about its truthfulness. The Kandahar giant mystery reveals a story where brutal combat collides with ancient legends and government silence. Though official records remain sealed, the consistent eyewitness accounts and erased evidence challenge us to question what really hides in the shadows. If this story has sparked your curiosity, be sure to like, subscribe, and join the conversation below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.